the Oshkosh Common Council meeting, December 13th, 2022. And would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Ford,
Here.
Mugrower,
Here.
Hanson,
Here.
Miller, Wojciechowski,
Here.
Erickson,
Here.
Palmieri,
Here.
6 present.
Councilmember Ford will lead us in the invocation, followed by our Alps Charter School students and Tipler Middle School students with the Pledge of Allegiance.
We come together this evening to discuss the issues that confront our city. May we always seek the wisdom to do the things that reflect our concern for all the people we represent.
Sophia Probst of Tipler Middle School. Here is your certificate. And Grayson Probst of Alps Charter School. Thank you so much for leading us in the pledge this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So this evening, we have several public hearings. The first one is Resolution 22-512, approve final resolution of special assessments for concrete pavement, asphalt pavement, sidewalk, new and rehabilitation, driveway aprons, sanitary sewer main and laterals, new and relay, water main and laterals, new and relay, and storm sewer mains and laterals, new and relay, relating to contract number 22-02 for 9th Avenue and South Main Street. Do we have anyone registered to speak on this hearing?
We do not.
All right, we will call second reading of the public hearing 22-512, approving final resolution for special assessments regarding 9th Avenue and South Main Street. And a third and final reading, public hearing 22-512, approve final resolution for special assessments for 9th Avenue and South Main Street. Can we have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this public hearing? Councilmember Miller.
See, perfect timing. James, is this for the industrial development on the east side of Maine?
This is for the reconstruction of East 9th Avenue from Main Street up to the Pioneer Drive right there by the Railroad
So
Railroad Crossing.
by Ranke's there?
Yeah, I think that's about right.
So I saw we got sidewalks in there.
Yep.
You know how I hate sidewalks when we don't have a development. Can we pull the sidewalks out of there?
That would be your call, I guess. I think with the development with T-Wall, there is a park to be developed on the south side that these sidewalks will be connecting to, as well as the sidewalks all along the T-Wall development.
Can we pull them out and, until we have a permanent plan in there and everything? I just don't see the need for sidewalks. We're
We
gonna
do
go.
have a permanent plan for the north side with the T-Wall project.
So the south side though? Do we?
Not at this time. I think Kelly might have some more information, but certainly it would also be servicing that park that's a part of the T-Wall development on the south side.
Mr. Robbie is correct. At this time, there are not plans for the south side, but I believe Public Works was looking into the future as far as just, we're going to have more traffic in that area and more foot traffic also with the Riverwalk in the area with the dog park that will be privately owned by the T-Wall Development Group to the south. And then, hopefully in the future, more traffic, going to the Pioneer area and, just in the whole area where that T-wall is looking to develop it.
Are we, if we pull the sidewalks out of the south side, is it going to cause anybody any pain until we know what we're going to do there?
It will certainly increase our cost of construction by deleting half of that bid item. So the unit rate for the rest of the sidewalks will go up, and, constructing them in the future is gonna cost more than constructing them now would, but that would be the primary impacts.
So you don't like my idea?
I think while we're in there doing the construction is the right time to do it.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
Any further discussion on public hearing 22-512? Not, please call the roll.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
All right, our next public hearing is 22-513, approve final resolution for special assessments for asphalt overlay relating to contract number 22-21, A, Huron Avenue from North Main Street to Mount Vernon Street, B, North West Haven Drive from State Highway 21 to Omro Road, C, alley west of South Main Street from West 9th Avenue to West 10th Avenue, and D, West 4th Avenue from South Sawyer Street to Gunther Street. Is there anyone registered on this public hearing?
There is not.
All right. A second reading, approve final resolution for special assessments for asphalt overlay relating to contract number 22-21 for Huron Avenue, Northwest Haven, the alley west of South Main, and West 4th Avenue. Third and final reading, approve final resolution for special assessments for asphalt overlay relating to contract number 22-21, Huron Avenue, Northwest Haven Drive, alley west of South Main Street, and West 4th Avenue. Back to council for a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
Resolution 514, approve final resolution for special assessments for concrete pavement, asphalt pavement, sidewalk, new and rehabilitation, driveway aprons, sanitary sewer main and laterals, new and relay, water main and laterals, new and relay, and storm sewer mains and laterals, new and relay, relating to contract number 22-25, A, Ripon Lane, West South Park Avenue to the end of Ripon Lane. And we don't have anyone.
No one's registered.
Second reading, 22-514, approve final resolution for special assessments for Ripon Lane. Third and final reading, approve final resolution for special assessments for concrete pavement, asphalt, sidewalk, sanitary sewer, driveway aprons, water main laterals, and storm sewer mains and laterals for contract number 22-25 for Ripon Lane. All right, back to council.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on 514. Please call the roll.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
And ordinance 22-515, again, under public hearing, approve official map amendment for the deletion of the Campbell Creek Storm Drainage Detention Area, generally located at the southwest corner of West 9th Avenue and South Washburn Street. Plan Commission recommends approval. Is there anyone registered here?
No one.
Okay. Second reading, 22-515, approve official map amendment for the deletion of the Campbell Creek Storm drainage detention area at the southwest corner of West Ninth and South Washburn. Third and final reading, 22-515, approve official map amendment for the deletion of the Campbell Creek Storm Drainage Detention Area generally located at the southwest corner of West Ninth Avenue and South Washburn Street. Back to council.
So moved.
Actually, this is an ordinance on first reading.
First reading. Oh, I'm sorry, first reading. All right, so this will not be voted on tonight, then. It's
No,
going to
it
come
won't.
back. First reading. Got it. No vote on 22-515. And final public hearing is on the City of Oshkosh wastewater utility 2042 facilities plan. Do we have anyone registered?
No, we do not.
All right. Back to council for motion in a second.
There's no action on this item either. This is an opportunity for you to receive input from the public. We will be bringing a resolution to you for approval of this plan, likely in one of the 2 January meetings.
Okay, back in January.
But it is a public hearing, so typically you would
Yes.
call it 3 times. Yeah.
All right, second reading for City of Oshkosh wastewater utility 2042 facilities plan. If anyone would like to speak to this item. Third reading, City of Oshkosh wastewater utility 2042 facilities plan. Okay. Mr. Robbie, would
Yes?
you like to share any detail on this?
I think the big highlights here really is, this is a high-level planning document for the wastewater utility for the next 20 years. So the facilities plan is a planning document that is required in state administrative code for our long-range planning, and it really outlines, what the wastewater utility, both in terms of treatment processes as well as what we're doing in our collection system, what we're looking at over the next 20 years. Kind of a next level down of that is our asset management plans, which we update on about a 5-year cycle. And all of those plans go into the annual capital improvement program planning that we do every single year. One of the primary drivers for us doing the update at this time, generally these are 20-year plans. Our current plan is approximately 30 years old, so it was definitely in need of updating, but also in order to come into compliance with phosphorus discharge regulations from the wastewater utility, we need to be able to add a 3rd level of treatment or tertiary treatment to bring those phosphorus levels down. And we could not get approval through the agencies to add that level of treatment without our facility plan being updated. So this is the first step towards getting our compliance with the phosphorus regulations in place.
All right, council, any other questions? All right, we will move on to citizen statements to council.
Patricia Diener.
My name is Patricia Diener. I live at 1316 Broad. My daughter had these signs printed up. Due to people being on the property, I've been through. But in the long run, I grew up by the tracks since 1965. Okay? Our parents always taught us and told us, never go on tracks, never be by them. You can be sucked in. You can do anything can happen. A train is bigger than anything. Well, I had a dad that was a conductor. And I got to meet him after so many years. And he was telling me all about the train, what it can do, how it can harm people. Well, the last few weeks, we had another accident. I happened to be in the basement. I went outside for a minute. Train's to a halt. Well, I don't think he's switching. I can't hear him switch. Train accident. People don't understand how fast the train goes, what it can do. And this is why she had the signs printed up. And You can't tell your kids what to do because they don't want to listen, or they take off, or they get mad and they play on the tracks or throw stones. Well, a train is big and can do a lot of damage. And I was going to talk to, I have to talk to the council, I can't talk to Public Works. My husband and I were doing some errands today, and he said, you know, it'd be nice if the council or maybe talk to Public Works. Why don't you get the liquid, instead of putting all the salt on the road, after you plow, put the liquid down. It probably would save on vehicles, be a lot easier that way. And we're gonna talk about some history. Everybody has always come. One of the gentlemen used to come and talk about it, passed away. We're gonna talk about some history down by the park. Nobody hardly ever talks about it. It's called Mercy Hospital and the extended care. Them two buildings started many, many years ago. And I grew up by them buildings a lot. And now look what they came to be. They had to get a bigger hospital. And there's not going to be enough hospitals going on the way the situations are. But look what it turned out to be. People can live in an apartment. That used to be extended care. 3 RNs ran that building. And 1 nun ran the whole boiler system. And you tell me that people didn't work years ago? They worked. We didn't know what it was to work. And years ago, they had to run. I remember the hospital not having enough rooms, that I walked into the hospital and there were people in the hallway. Now do you see why more hospitals are getting built? And I never dreamed that either. But it can happen to anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else registered?
We do not.
We'll move on to consent agenda. Is there anyone registered on consent?
Nope.
Council?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion on consent items? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
All right, we have a new ordinance this evening, 22-534, for updating the parking ordinances on Algoma Boulevard. Is there anyone registered on the parking for Algoma Boulevard? Looks like there's a recommendation for waiving the second reading on this.
We need that motion first. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and adopt on first reading.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on waiving the rules? Please call the roll.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
And back to the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Reby, on Algoma Boulevard, what's just kind of a high-level summary for the
This,
public?
This is making the ordinance match with the existing conditions or the current conditions now that Algoma Boulevard has been reconstructed. There were several areas where parking limits were lengthened to provide additional space. As we reviewed it with Transportation Director Collins, we felt that some of the existing parking restrictions were placed the way they were simply because there was a pole already there to mount a sign. So as we worked through the design, we tried to maximize parking wherever we could, given the proximity to the university and to Reed Elementary. So the purpose of this ordinance is really to bring the code up to match the conditions post-construction for Algoma. And I don't know if Mr. Collins is here, so if you've got anything else? Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, if there's no further discussion, please call the roll on 22-534.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
All right, pending ordinance 22-535, extend the no parking area on the south side of CP Avenue from Court Street to 120 feet west. Is there anyone registered on this parking?
There is not.
No. Okay. Back to council.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. 120 feet? I'm just,
I'm going to defer to Mr. Collins on this one.
Yeah, I can answer that. There already is no parking in most of the area, but this is for the fire department. They actually now house one of their larger trucks at the fire station. I think it's 15 there. But anyway, they requested, this is right in front of, there's the law firm there on Court, and there was 2 on-street parking stalls. So whenever there were a car parked there, they were having a hard time getting their vehicles to maneuver in. So we did, or they did talk with the law firm. They don't have an issue with it because they have a parking lot on the other side of their building. So basically, it's the 120 feet where there are 2 parking stalls. We're just removing that so that they can get their apparatus into their garage.
so you're saying our firefighters aren't good drivers is what you're
No,
You just said it.
Yeah, I just said, I'm sure I'll get crushed for that, but no, I'm kidding. But all right, I just didn't understand the 120
Yep, no
feet,
problem.
so thanks.
All right, please call the roll on 22-535.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
Ordinance 22-536, approve request to annex the city, to the city from the town of Oshkosh, Soper annexation, 3400 Jackson Street. Plan Commission recommends approval. Do we have anyone registered to speak on this item?
We do not.
All right, back to council.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Please call the roll.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
Pending ordinance 22-537, cancel December 27th, 2022 council meeting. I don't imagine we have anyone registered to speak on this item.
We do not.
Back to council.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? All right, please call the roll.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
No. I just felt like voting no tonight. I just put too many yeses.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 6-1.
You'll get a chance. Promise. Resolution 538, approve 2023 stormwater utility rate, $19.81 per ERU per month. Is there anyone registered to speak on this?
No.
Council,
Motion to approve. Second.
discussion. Stormwater utility rates. Please, all right, Councilmember Miller.
I think we got somebody here from Mellors, don't we?
Mr. Cameron is here, yes?
Come on up. I know we gave you a lot of time on this one. So, walk us through the task of knocking this down to, I don't have my notes in front of me. Mike, you want to chime in here for a second?
Councilmember Ford.
Yeah.
I'm not on Bill's payroll, I promise. No, I mean, my question, I had asked the city manager for this information, is what would the process be like to make this a 2% annual fee perpetuity, and what would that require in terms of moving money over to make sure we have our debt coverage, et cetera?
Sure. So we had looked at that over the 10-year planning process at a high level. And realistically, what it would mean is over kind of the next 10-year period, cutting approximately 14 million out of the capital improvement plan. It most likely would need to occur within the first 5 years of the plan, you know, more specifically, probably within the first 2 to 3 years of the capital improvement plan versus the back end of it. But that was kind of our first look at it from the request.
And that is if we were to take it and have it 2% every year, so we're crossing out the 0% increases later in the
Correct.
time period.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, that's why, coming back to that first couple of years, it would most likely be within kind of that 2024 timeline specifically, likely some projects out of next year's capital improvement plan as well.
So what that basically does is reduce our borrowing in
You would have to, right, you'd have to reduce your overall level of capital spending, but specifically, you'd have to reduce the borrowing associated with it.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Van Gompel, I hear you. I don't see you, but
You will in a second.
yes,
My
please,
video's
go
there.
ahead.
Sorry, I wanted to step in real quickly, just to give you a little bit more of a background information. You know, typically, the finance department works with James, Robbie, the director of public works, and we come forward with a capital improvement plan that city council's already adopted that lays out the list of projects that we think are necessary for our utilities, the stormwater utilities, sanitary sewer, and water utilities. And we've approved the capital improvement plan. After that's done, we go back and look and work with elders to say, if we're gonna do these projects and we need to finance these projects, you know, what does that do to the rate? So we have the rate analysis that was done by elders. So basically, we do it based on the projects driven in the CIP process. As John has just mentioned, right now we're looking at reducing our borrowing capacity in 2023 for stormwater projects because we have some cash on hand. That cash on hand can be used to reduce our debt. We were planning on issuing about $15 million in debt for 2023 stormwater projects, but we're gonna reduce that down by $9 million and only borrow $6 million for projects. So we're gonna use cash. So that's a good story for our customers and our residents. But at the same time, we have to look at the revenue needs of the utility and the revenue needs that we have to have in place to pledge our coverage for our existing bondholders. We have to have revenue at 1.2 times our basically our operating expenses to provide that cushion. And based on that, we have laid out a 10-year plan for our rates. And if I could ask the IT staff just to pop that up on the screen real quick. There's a slide that shows the projected increases, and this is through the study for the next 10 years. Go to the slide right before that that just has the rates. Not there yet. There we go. So based on that, in 2023, we're looking at a 6.5% increase in the rates. In 2024, we're looking at another 6.5%, but then it tapers off because we're starting to use some of this cash for capital projects. And as this plan lays out, we have some twos, some fours, and some zeros going out to 2032 over the next 10 years. So I know it's a big pill to swallow, and we've had rates increases in the past, but the good news is we now have cash built up in the stormwater utility fund, so we can use cash for projects. So we don't need to plan and borrow $15 million that we had in our CIP for next year. we only need to borrow about $6 million for that. But to borrow that $6 million, we still have to show that we have revenues sufficient to meet our debt obligations, and that's the need for the rate increase. John, I don't know if you have any other comments on that, but I just wanted to make those comments.
Oh, you summarized it very well, Russ.
Councilmember Ford.
So if I just want to make sure I'm describing this correctly. So you're saying for us to keep our debt coverage at 1.2 moving forward, right at that minimum, it's going to cost us $14 million if we were to reduce rates by a cumulative amount of about 10%.
Taking keeping that at 1.2, the other thing from just an overall cash standpoint is looking at over the 10-year period of time, making sure that from a benchmark standpoint, that we've got at least 6 months of operating expenses and 1 year's worth of debt in reserve. So those two factors together. So a minimum of 1.2 coverage, plus making sure that we're adhering to kind of a minimum benchmark standard of never really going below having at least 6 months of operating expense and 1 year's debt service payment. So those are kind of the two factors that we looked at with that request to look at it, just a 2% increase.
Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. John, how does the plan as we're looking at it today, how does this affect our rating? Does this change anything with our rating in terms of borrowing? Is this going to increase our borrowing costs or anything?
So the plan, as you're looking at it, as it would be adopted, the goal would be at least to maintain your bond rating and to keep the utility in a self-sufficient position where we're maintaining at least 1.2 times coverage and that we have adequate reserves on hand in case of an emergency, and that would be at least 6 months of operating expenses and 1 year's worth of debt.
Okay. And James, this means that we have to pull a couple projects?
If you wanted to talk about reducing, the impact for next year, it would mean deleting projects that are in the current plan that was approved, yes. And looking at the plan that we have for 2023, it's primarily street projects and then some work in the Sawyer Creek watershed where, we've got some challenges coming up with an upcoming DOT project that, we're going to be giving you some more information on in the relatively near future. There's not any other projects in the list other than street projects.
The practical side.
John, go ahead. Oh, I think John wants.
Oh, yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Mark.
The only thing I would add is if you did look at a scenario or want to say a scenario where you'd say we're going to limit ourselves to a hard 2% a year every year, and that is something that you would vote on, that would be something that we likely in future official statements for stormwater revenue bonds, that is likely something we would need to disclose to potential underwriters who would be purchasing those stormwater revenue bonds, and likely something that when it comes time to go through the rating process with Moody's that we'd also likely need to disclose.
I guess where I'm at, we've got a lot of options here, and we challenge staff and Ellers to come back with these numbers, but I know I need some time to digest this, especially with Public Works, pulling projects and things like that. It's a pretty big deal. I guess I would like to lay this over to our next council meeting. Is that going to affect anything, Mark, if you want to?
I think Russ would, I'll defer to Russ to comment on the fee part of it. I would still recommend that our next item, the budget, be adopted so that we have authorization to continue, start the year. And we can come back, whatever council decides, we can come back with amend the budget fairly easy. It's not that big a deal, but I would strongly suggest you adopt the budget. But if you wait, Russ, I don't think you have a lot of concern, but I'd rather have you tell them.
Sure. Well, the current ordinance would go into play on April 1 of 2023 anyways. So we would have some time to make the necessary adjustments and implementation if you did not approve this rate increase tonight. But we certainly, if you don't approve the rate increase tonight, the next action is the budget for the stormwater utility. And if you decided not to do the 6.5%, we would have to adjust the budget for the stormwater utility at some point. In addition, we would have to look at the potential of reducing stormwater projects, some of which have already been bid out as part of street reconstruction projects. So we presented a list of projects that we thought was necessary for the continuation of managing our stormwater. Those are priorities to staff, and I think the council decided those were priorities based on the adoption of the CIP. So the rate is a separate action, but this rate of 6.5% is necessary to support the reduction in borrowing in the CIP and using some more cash for that, but it's also necessary for the viability and long-term financial success of the stormwater utility.
All right.
From a practical standpoint, the projects that you see on the first big page one of the paper handout you have, in order to stay ahead of the curve on bidding, we've done most of our street project bidding already. So since the council's already awarded those are kind of off limits. The project that would most likely, and James and I haven't gotten into the details, but most likely the Sawyer Creek watershed project would have to be deferred because it's the only one of any substance that would get us down.
Yeah, there's a couple of street projects, the Arthur Bauman Coolidge, that area hasn't been bid yet, but, where their plans are getting done. One of the struggles I have with the Sawyer Creek project is, these costs are designed or are based off of being able to utilize the Clark Hill site for fill disposal and off-road hauling. If we were to delay this and the Clark Hill site were no longer available for us to utilize off-road hauling for that waste material, those project costs would approximately quadruple with having to put those in a licensed on-road trucks and haul it somewhere else. I think looking at the 23 plan, I think, we are a very long ways down those capital projects. I think the 24 project list would be one where we would have a lot of opportunities to talk with you and, maybe reprioritize. But, looking at that list, we've got projects like the Stringham Watershed box culvert, which, as council may recall, it was just a year ago where we had several meetings with the people that live in the 9th and Ohio area about the flooding in that area. And, that Stringham box culvert project is, we need a couple of years of that to be able to get some relief to those people. So
Are those the folks we flooded out twice last
twice in
year?
about a 6-month time frame,
Yeah.
I believe they were flooded out. So, as Mr. Van Gompel pointed out, it is a lot of puzzle pieces that we go through, to try to fit all the projects together. So we would certainly have to spend some time reshuffling the puzzle, so to speak, to bring those projects down. But I think it would be really realistically starting with the 24 planned projects, because we, as Mr. Roloff said, we were pushing hard to get projects bid out to get ahead of the DOT so we could get good pricing on the projects. So we're at a situation where we have awarded several.
And James, I want to be clear, you guys have done everything we've asked, so thank you for that. One last question, and then I'm going to make my motion to table this for the next meeting, but it's not going to cost us anything to table this rate discussion till the next meeting.
There won't be an
Is that
issue. I
accurate?
would suggest defer rather than table, but that's
Oh,
semantics.
sorry.
But not a problem.
Okay,
We can do that because
sure.
the rates would take effect April 1, so we still have time. We would say you got to do it in January.
Right.
Absolutely got to do it in January.
But I think this is going to give the council and staff some time to look at this a little bit more closely. I think we owe it to everybody to do this, so I'd like to make a motion to defer this to the next council meeting.
Second.
Discussion on the motion. Councilmember Ford?
Yep, I'm supportive of that. I think I said last year that I wish that we never went above the rate of inflation. on these increases. And I know that I think part of the issue here is that we do approve the CIP. We don't have the rates yet, and I understand that's a timing issue. But I think that's why it's worthwhile for us to have a little more time to digest this, and hopefully for city staff to come up with some more creative solutions. And I know that, that I think that should include, I can't speak for the whole group here, but it should include looking at ARPA funds that we dedicated for CIP scored infrastructure projects. To me, those fit the bill. Whether there's surplus money in our operating surplus. I mean, I think that we can be more creative than looking just at rates. And I hope we are. So, yeah, I support this.
All right, please call the roll on the motion.
The motion to defer to next council meeting. Ford.
Aye.
Mugrower.
Aye.
Hanson. Miller.
Aye.
Wojciechowski.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
All right. Our next new resolution then is 22-539, adopt the 2023 annual budget for the water, sewer, and stormwater utilities. I'm sorry, did I lose track here? No, that was the stormwater utility rate. Now we are on the 2023 annual budget for the water, sewer, and stormwater utilities for the city of Oshkosh. Is there anyone registered to speak on this resolution?
There is not.
All right, back to council.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Ford?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to amend to include enhancement 19 for the water filtration operator through the water utility budget.
Second.
Discussion on the motion to amend.
Hold on, sorry. So. I'm sorry, which enhancement was it?
Oh, number 19 for the water filtration operator.
And that was Ford, and I'm sorry, who was the second?
Moogs.
My apologies. Ford? I'm sorry, you called for the vote, or are we still
I
discussing?
had a
Discussion on the amendment to include the enhancement.
We're keeping you on your toes tonight.
Councilmember Ford?
Yes, thank you. If you recall that this was one of those enhancements that was presented to us during the operating budget discussion, but because this would have been funded by water utility rates, we took it out and said we consider it when we considered the actual utility budget. We just did that. I want to thank, he's up there somewhere. I'm just seeing my own bald head. But Finance Director Von Gompel, who answered my questions today regarding what this might do to rates next year. But it certainly is something that the water filtration operator position is sorely needed, as was expressed to us during the operating budget. And I think now's the appropriate time to consider it. I'm happy to add it.
Any further discussion on the amendment? All right, please call the roll.
Ford?
Aye.
Mugrower?
Aye.
Hanson? Aye. Miller?
Aye.
Wojciechowski?
Aye.
Erickson?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Carried 7.
All right, and we need to come back to adopt the budget resolution here as amended.
Ford?
Aye.
Mugrower?
Aye.
Hanson? Aye. Miller?
Aye.
Wojciechowski?
Aye.
Erickson?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Carried 7.
Resolution 22-540, approve closing out the police pension fund. Is there anyone registered on this item?
There is not.
Can you explain why they're closing it up?
Back to council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
All right, discussion. Mr. Van Gompel, are you still with us? I
You're
think
muted, Russ. You're muted.
I'm unmuted now.
Yes. Yes. Summary as to why we're closing this out?
Sure. Last year we closed out the fire pension fund and we took some money out of the police pension fund. And at the time we had one surviving spouse that was from the police pension fund that was still receiving benefits. Unfortunately, that surviving spouse has passed away and is no longer collecting benefits, so there's no longer any need to have any funding in this police pension fund. So we still have a remaining balance of $81,658 that we're asking for your consideration to move it into our workers' compensation fund. So it's similar to the action the council took last year. The change is we left some money because quite honestly, we didn't know how long that one remaining spouse would be surviving. Again, I regret to inform you that that spouse is deceased, so there are no longer any payments coming out of the fund.
And just for background, I know the council knows this, but for people watching, if the concern is that we're somehow eliminating
Yes.
pensions, these are for liabilities that existed prior to the city's participation in the Wisconsin retirement system. All of our employees are covered. This literally is from someone whose spouse, they were in the system like in the 1960s. And
No,
it's-
well, actually, it was before 1945. We started with the WRS in 1945, and we carried over people that were employed prior to that. Was kind of a blended mix between WRS and the city pension fund. There is no longer any employees that were hired before that time or spouses that are collecting the benefit. So that's why it's appropriate to close it out.
Thank you. Yes, just to be clear, they're not doing away with the pension for our police officers. This was a pre-1945, if I understood that, program. All right, any further discussion? Please call the roll on 22-540.
Ford.
Aye.
Mugrower.
Aye.
Hanson. Aye. Miller.
Aye.
Wojciechowski.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
Resolution 22-541, authorize the filing by Go Transit of 2023 FTA and WSDOT operating and capital assistance grants, as well as county transportation assistance. Do we have anyone registered?
We do not.
Back to council.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Mr. Collins, do you want to just kind of give a brief overview of these grants?
Sure. These basically are, every year we file our operating grants with the Federal Transit Administration, the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, and then the county. Those are our three major grant funding sources. So the federal and state grants fund about 53 to 57% of Go Transit's operations, and then the county contributes to some of our paratransit programs, and then we have a partnership with them on some of those. So each year we have to file our grants with them and apply for the aid, and then we receive that back towards the end of the year after our operating expenses are filed. So that's kind of a synopsis.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? All right, please call the roll on 22-541.
Ford.
Aye.
Mugrower.
Aye.
Hanson. Aye. Miller.
Aye.
Wojciechowski.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
Resolution 22-542, accept grant from the Oshkosh United Way to expand Go Transit's 2023 Access to Jobs Program, $13,000. Is there anyone registered on this item?
There's not.
All right, back to council.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Is there anyone by chance here from United Way? No? Okay.
No, but Jim's been working very closely with United Way on this for several months.
So this is a pretty important program for getting folks back and forth to work. How did United Way get involved?
Sure. basically, one of United Way's tenets, I guess, is to help people earn a living wage. I don't think that's the exact words, but it's to that effect. So they've asked me for, this was going back to when the previous director was there, was interested in how they could help get people to work. And that's been an issue in the community. And with Go Transit, we have this program that was started a while ago called Access to Jobs. It was started as a state grant to get people to employment and back. At one point, probably over 10 years ago, that program ended, and the city continued on with the program, funding the local share through our budget. And we have basically a few requirements to be part of that program. And what it is you can get a cab ride to and from work. The hours that Go Transit does not operate are buses, and or if you have an unreasonable commute to get to a bus. So if you live more than, say, 3/4 of a mile from a bus stop, you can use this program, and or if you work second or third shift, you can use this program. It provides a $4 cab ride, and the requirements are that you live and work in the city, you work 30 hours a week or more, and you're at, currently it's 225% of the federal poverty level or less that you earn that. The issue that we were running into as the economy, wages have picked up, so people that were in a single household, at 225% of the federal poverty level, it's currently it's under $15 an hour. It's around 14 something an hour. So some people weren't qualifying, and we were having to turn down some of those folks. So United Way, as well as some others, had asked how we could increase that. So what this is a grant that we applied for through United Way to increase that federal poverty requirement to 275%. So this now makes those people that are at $15 an hour eligible. It moves it up to, I think it was like $18, $19 an hour. So most people that are at a starting wage, this will allow them to get started. And the program's designed to get people on their feet, to get them to and from work for the first few months until they can get enough money where they can afford transportation. So this partnership, it's a one-year pilot. We'll see how it goes this year, but I anticipate that, as wages go up, we're probably going to have to discuss this with them and you guys again next year and see where we want to go. But I think this will be a good start.
But just to be clear, the folks getting the access to jobs, they still have to pay $4 each way?
Right.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
And it is, I mean, it is still a good deal for them. Our contract, we pay $25 a ride, so it's heavily subsidized. Like I mentioned earlier, our grants, that helps with it, as well as then there's the fare, and then there's obviously the levy. So, but I think it's a good program. It meets United Way's mission, and it also helps the city and helps people get on their feet.
Councilmember Erickson.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for pursuing this. I know the last 2.5 years I've been on council, this has come up a few times from folks who utilize the program, and I know it's very much appreciated for the people who do use it. So thank you, and happy to support it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I was just trying to see if we listed out how many folks are using the program currently. I see that this will add 10 new riders per month to the program. Oh, wait a minute. To the program who take an average of 13 rides per month.
Yeah, we have there's a couple of hundred people in the program currently, but there's probably about 40 that are active users per month, and this will bring that up to probably around 50. Obviously we don't know that for sure, but that's the ballpark.
Okay, thank you.
Nice job, Jim.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, United Way. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson. Aye. Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
All right, next is Resolution 22-543, approve conditional use permit for expansion of an institutional residential use and a group development at 851 County Road Y. Plan Commission recommends approval. Is there anyone registered to speak on this?
There's
No?
not.
All right. Back to council.
So moved.
Second?
discussion? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't assume there's anybody from the county here
Several.
regarding this particular one? Okay. So, it concerned me back when we approved the first one, and it concerns me even more expanding upon it. I understand the limitations that the county has been given, that, they've got some very narrow parameters to work within to try to house these individuals. I can appreciate the tough spot that the county is in. However, the centralization of these offenders within the city limits is a real problem for me, and it should be for many residents within the city of Oshkosh. I understand that there's been little to no issues with the current housing that we do have. But the county's a big county. There's a lot of square miles in this county, and it sure be nice if few other communities within this county bared their fair share of some of the stuff that we have to do. And it seems like Oshkosh routinely has to get the brunt of some of the unfun stuff, and this is definitely one of the unfun things. I guess if someone from the county is here and is interested in speaking, I guess I want to know, were there other options explored in terms of other locations within the county? I understand the reasons that this one ranks up there high, being right next to the sheriff's department and all county-owned land is extremely, it makes it very convenient, and it works because of all the other limitations that the laws, put on these types of individuals and the housing that they need to be put into. But were there other locations identified even to pursue?
I can tell you, we have looked.
Wait.
Would you mind using the mic,
Yep.
just so the people at home can hear you?
And can you just state your name and address, please? Thank you.
Mary Ann Miller, Corporation Counsel for Winnebago County. And as most of you know, the state has obligated the county to find housing for serious sex offenders whose residence was in the county where the crime took place. We came here a few years ago, given the fact that per Wisconsin statute, we were obligated to look for housing. I can tell you, Deputy Mayor Mugerauer, we have looked for housing. And the problem is that there are requirements of being 1,500 feet from a school, from a nursing home, from a church. And the other piece is, most of the offenders that we are dealing with, residence was in the city of Oshkosh at the time the crime was committed. So we have looked. We have our facilities director here. I have Assistant Corporation Counsel Jeff Mann here. And quite frankly, this was the best place to find, given the fact that it is in the shadow of the sheriff's office. It is not in a neighborhood. It is 1,500 feet at least from all of the various, areas that it had to be away from. So again, we as other counties, hands are tied. If we do not find housing within a certain period of time, as you all may remember, the county is obligated to pay $1,100 per day in fines, which totals over $400,000 a year, which all taxpayers will eventually have to wind up paying. So does that answer your question?
No, and it does, and I appreciate your willingness to step up to the microphone and
absolutely.
and answer the questions. And like I said, I understand the county's it's between a rock and a hard place in terms of housing these individuals. And that this is the prime location for that. I hate using that term. But it doesn't mean I gotta like it, and I don't like it very much. So I won't be supporting, I wanna see this county start looking at making sure that other municipalities within the bounds of Winnebago County start doing their fair share of picking up some of the responsibilities. It seems like Oshkosh is always the one who has to pick up the pieces and has to handle all these types of things.
And if I could just
so,
underscore, and I hear you.
Yeah.
If I could just underscore, the lion's share of the offenders were residents of the city of Oshkosh at the time the crime was committed.
Sure. I appreciate that. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to underscore Matt's comments. I mean, this is the real shitty part of this job. It really is.
Order.
I understand pardon me, I missed something.
No swearing.
Oh,
Let's try
sorry,
to-
I didn't mean to. I don't even know what I said, but, this is the scourge of our community. And when you say lion's share, what does that mean? Are we getting 75% of these that are from our area? I mean, I think we owe everybody in the city a better answer than lion's share. Not to put additional pressure on you, but, so what does lion's share mean?
I don't want to talk off the top of my head, but I would say at least half, if not more than half.
So half doesn't mean lion's share to me.
Well, I said half, if not more, and it might very well be more, but I'm not going to give you numbers that I cannot.
Sure, I understand. This is just a tough pill to swallow. I understand your situation, but I couldn't agree with Matt's comments more. I'm real tired of Oshkosh being a dumping ground for this kind of stuff. I will not be supporting this tonight. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
If there's no other comments from council, I don't know where the votes would go, but I would end up motioning to possibly defer this, being responsible and deferring this to the next meeting, so maybe Winnebago County can have a chance to speak to us. So I'll quit pressing the button there.
Councilmember Wojciechowski.
How long do we have before before the county starts getting fined?
We have someone right now who we need to find housing for. And we have been in front of the court to ask for an extension. And so the time is now to make a decision.
Yeah, and for context, I mean, I was on the county board the last time this came around, so I'm very familiar when this discussion came up, and it is tough. You know, it's a lot of money each year to be putting on the taxpayers, essentially. And I do understand the concerns and comments that have been said. I don't know, I probably would vote no to defer it, but that's just how I'm feeling right now. Thank you.
I guess I'd just like to also understand, so this would be a one-year CUP, perhaps, Councilmember Ford? I'm just not seeing that in our staff memo.
No, it would not be. Mr. Lyons is here and can speak to it, but the short answer is no, it would not be just for 1 year.
Because that wasn't, I'm sorry.
Am I correct,
Just
Mr.
occurred to me
Lyons?
that they're asking for 11 one-bedroom dwelling structures, and the CUP would be for how long?
So if the CUP wants, if it were granted, as city manager mentioned, it is in perpetuity until they would discontinue the land use. So it is not just for 1 year.
Okay.
Once granted, they would be able to occupy it for that specific use until they no longer needed to.
So that's a pretty big commitment. Councilmember Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. Mark, so based on the size of the property and everything, how many units could they put on the existing property?
So based on the property that this was just, set to be requested on, the 11 units is about the maximum that can fit on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ford?
Yeah, well, first off, I mean, I don't disagree with any of these comments up here. I do think Oshkosh gets turned to as the dumping ground, which is weird and, yeah, not fair. But I do at least want to reiterate that at Plan Commission, there was discussion about this, and it was shared with us that These are folks that are on 24-hour monitoring and literally cannot leave the building unless they have direct supervision. And someone pointed out at the meeting that it's kind of even strange that why do we release people from custody if they're not allowed to leave a single-bedroom unit on their own? And there's logic to that. I sympathize with the fact that the county's got nothing they can do about it. But it doesn't negate the point you all made. I mean, that still is true. I think it's good to know that. I don't think this is a public health risk for us, but it does certainly speak to, I think, it's not lack of respect. I don't know what it is, but the fact is that we do end up getting all these things in Oshkosh, and that's something worth talking about and we're thinking about.
If I could just follow up with what Councilmember Ford indicated, there are typically 72 to 74 rules that these offenders have to follow. Within the first year, there is electronic monitoring. They cannot even open the front door to get a newspaper without permission. If they go off-site, they're with a probation agent. If they have to go to a doctor's appointment, it's not as if they're going to be taking buses anywhere. So they have significant supervision. Again, where the proposed plan is located, as I said, is right by the sheriff's office. The sheriff routinely goes past that area. And so that's basically what I can tell you about that.
Deputy Mayor, then Councilmember Hanson, followed by Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A follow-up question, and once again, I really appreciate you. This was entirely not planned that I didn't even know somebody was going to be here from the county. So I really appreciate your willingness to step up and represent the county and speak to us. A simple question, I guess, but maybe a complicated answer. Do you know how many are even in the pipeline? Because this is the reason for my unhappiness with this. This is not short-term. This is in perpetuity, that this housing development for sex offenders will be within the city bounds of the city of Oshkosh.
I should also point out to you that the way...
Mary Ann, could you use the microphone, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I should also point out to you that the way these, I call them tiny homes, would be situated, if there was a dearth of these offenders, it could be transitioned for, with a veteran housing, okay? Just to let you know, so it's not as if it's a fait accompli, all right? In terms of the numbers, you are absolutely right. It's a very fluid situation because we never know. Essentially, people do their time in prison, and then if it's determined that they are serious sex offenders, they go to Sandbridge, which is south. And then once various physicians think, yes, they can be eligible for supervised release, they're up for supervised release. I believe, if you can just give me 1 minute.
Sure, I'd be happy to, yeah.
Do you know roughly right now, is it 6 to 7? Yeah, we believe, right.
And I'm sorry, could you just identify the person you're
Sure.
speaking with for the public?
This is my Assistant Corporation Counsel, Jeff Mann, and he has been helping me with this. And again, I believe the numbers are about 6 to 7.
6 to 7 is what we're being told that we know about. For whatever reason, we don't always get the most information. It's not forthcoming. We kind of find out about it the last moment, so to speak. But I would say probably that's what we're being told at the moment, 6 to 7.
And it's important to note that the plan now is for 11. We cannot anticipate it going that far, but again, we don't want to have to keep coming back and asking and taking your time because it's valuable. But again, that's...
Thank you.
I would tell you that in Deputy Mayor McGower, you had asked what other options are available. That's kind of been my task, kind of find out other places other than Oshkosh to put some of these folks. And the truth is, once you start layering all those restrictions on, and this isn't a great answer, but this is the best I can offer.
Yeah.
Once you have a church, hospital, daycare, it really starts pushing the boundaries on this to really, you have some really isolated areas. Sometimes rural, in this instance, it's kind of rural, but it's still in the city, so it's a little bit bizarre. But realistically, I've talked with the planning and the zoning folks here. We've done several maps. And to the best of my knowledge, and the last time I checked, which was probably within the last month, there really is nothing else available, to the best of my knowledge. Now, I will tell you that I sent out, we got a list of all of the potential landlords from the state of Wisconsin that typically work with the department. And I got about 13 folks on that list. I sent a mass email out to all of them, got responses from 6. Of course, they wanted us to all do the legwork and find the actual properties. They'd be more than happy to collect the money, the check, and do the work with the state. But be that as it may, the housing market, availability, and anything in that range, that 100,000, 200,000 mark, it was getting snapped up quicker than they could list it. So that's kind of how we ended up settling on this county-wide property. It doesn't hurt, obviously, that it is county property. It's interesting because we are, if you want to think of it, cutting edge. I don't know if you want to call it that, but it's interesting because this is not a unique problem. I think what you're seeing is in a lot of the metropolitan areas, the Racine's, Kenosha's, the Milwaukee's, they're really having a heck of a time with this because they have less land than we have available. And I've actually had several counties reach out to me just to see what exactly it was that we're doing because they find themselves in a similar position. Rock County comes to mind. But there certainly are other options being looked into. It's just a situation where we can't make something from nothing, at least at this point.
Councilmember Miller and then Hanson.
I want to go back to your comment. I would prefer, if this gets approved, I'm a hard no vote, but if this gets approved, I do want you to come back here every single time you add a body. I mean, I think that's the least the county should do to our community. So when you said it's a waste of our time, I think when we're dealing with this garbage, I want to see you. I want you to make your case because I'm against this 1,000%. So I can't reiterate that enough. And like I said, I'm one vote, but if we want to tie this to a number of units or heads and beds or something like that, I'm fine. But I think you owe it to this community every single time to come back here and ask to put one of these people in our community. So
I can tell you, as far as I'm concerned, Winnebago County has been transparent with the city to let them know what has been going on, and obviously, we will go through all of the requisite,
Sure.
things you want.
and I understand my frustration isn't with you. Please understand that.
Councilmember Hanson.
So, you've worked with our planning and zoning commissions and everything. Now, have you worked with other cities' planning and zoning commissions? What if we say no? Was there any other place that you've looked at that you've worked closely enough with?
It has to be in Winnebago County.
I get that. I'm
Yeah.
talking about like other municipalities, zoning and planning.
No, we have not. You're talking about
Say
going.
Neenah.
Right.
Have you talked with anyone in the city of Neenah?
We have looked throughout the county to find appropriate housing. If we couldn't find if we had appropriate housing, we would obviously speak with planning and zoning and all the requisite people. We haven't been able to find that.
I'd like to defer this as well. I can't say yes to this right now.
This is a really challenging topic, and it takes me back over 10 years to some pretty difficult neighborhood conversations. And I realize this is a bit different because we're talking about the 980, the Chapter 980s that must be. And it's almost like when I think about these restrictions, it's almost like there's not really an allowance of independent habitation. It seems somewhat incarceral in that way. So, but I do recall having conversations with folks who work with these individuals, and every human has a right, an expectation of being sheltered. And while I agree with some of my other council members that it seems like maybe all stones have not quite been turned in terms of what you're talking about building, right? Because if I understood this correctly, you're saying that you've looked in the other, like Neenah or other cities, as far as existing housing, but is there also potential land for the purpose of, or is that not the case? Am I misunderstanding that piece? So is it a matter of existing housing versus building these individual, like SROs?
As far as, there is no existing housing. We have looked.
Right.
We have Adam Dorn here, who is the GIS guru for Winnebago County, and he has been helping us, and perhaps he can answer your question more directly.
Okay, all right.
Yes, my name's Adam Dorn, the Geographic Information Systems Administrator for Winnebago County. And what we've done is to take all the statutory regulations in place, all those buffer distances that Jeff had talked about, and we did that not only for the city of Oshkosh, but we did that for the entire county. And we reviewed all the locations where there could be potential residential housing in the entire county. That is looking at both the buffer distances as well as where you can actually build properties. So that's including where sanitary districts are, where you can put sewer. And there are effectively no locations where we can place housing like this where it's not going to be in a neighborhood, where it's not going to be directly adjacent or within the 1,500 feet of existing neighborhoods. So after reviewing that with the county executive, with our board, the decision was made to try to pursue this location because it's the location that most isolates this housing from directly impacting residents of the city of Oshkosh or any other portion of the county. If the placement isn't made, excuse me, at a location like this, it could potentially be ordered by a judge to be put in another location that meets the statutory requirements, but impacts residential housing more directly.
Well, and there's one other alternative too. The judge could simply release the offender as well. And I think that there are judges that certainly are entertaining that because there really aren't any other options other than the fine, of course.
Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess one question and one statement. So when you say you need sewer and water, why do you need sewer and water? I look at an example like the prison system is starting to figure this out. Put these prisons out in the middle of nowhere, like red granite. So why do they need sewer and water? Why can't they get by on well and septic in the middle of some farm field?
They would have to be able to build and get permits to build in those locations. In the locations in Winnebago County can't put sanitary sewer in just anywhere. And the county,
But why do they need sewer? I guess I'm unclear. You could build a well and have a septic tank anywhere, so.
the septic tanks can't be placed anywhere. You need to be able to have a permitting process where a septic tank would be allowed. That's not allowed everywhere, and they can't just put holding tanks in per county code.
Councilmember Hanson.
No, I got one more question, Mayor, thank you. So.
One more,
so
and then-
My statement is, we're dooming the north side. We put a landfill, we built the high school there back in the early 70s. Then we put a landfill in, then we put a prison in. Now we're gonna put this out there? I mean, we're dooming this whole area out there. And I am so against this, it is unbelievable. When you look at this thing globally, you're dooming that whole community. You are. And this is ridiculous to think that this should go there. Thank you.
Councilmember Hanson.
Is there any chance we could see that GIS map?
I don't have it with me that I could.
That's fine. Can you email it to us?
Well, hold on one second.
Not right
Were-
now,
Were
but,
you guys
like,
gonna
if we
make a
defer?
motion to defer?
Sure, I'll make a motion to defer to the next meeting.
I see the chief back there. You want to Chief, you want to come up and
Do we have a
maybe?
second on the motion to defer first?
I will second that.
Okay. Can we have discussion on the motion to defer before we go into further discussion back on the resolution?
My only discussion is that I just would like as much info as we can get. And just, it just makes the most sense to me right now.
Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, on that note, I'm okay with deferring until we get, hard numbers of exactly how many folks we have in the system. I know 6 or 7, but the best we can get would be nice to actually know. It'd be nice to know how many are actually from city of Oshkosh, and, it'd be nice to know, get a little more reassurance, especially for my colleagues who seem unconvinced that due diligence has been done. So hopefully that gives a little idea of what would help us with a decision next meeting if this does get deferred.
All right, is there any further discussion on the motion to defer? Councilmember Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. Dean, you want to come up
Well,
and
hold on.
comment?
Let's finish this,
Okay.
this
All right.
piece of it first. If there's no further discussion on the motion to defer, let's call the roll.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
No.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson,
No?
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 5-2.
All right, thank you. So this will be deferred until the first meeting in January then? Is that correct? Yep.
That's what the motion was, we'll bring it back.
All right, thank you. Resolution 22-544, approve specific implementation plan amendment for an electronic message board at 2300 Witzel Avenue. Plan Commission recommends denial. Is there anyone to speak on this item?
There's not.
Back to council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on the motion. And I'll just point out that an aye vote approves it, the no vote denies it as per Plan Commission recommendation. Just pointing that out. Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, so Plan Commission voted unanimously against this. It's been pretty clearly, directly in violation of code in that zoning area, and they didn't, the client or the applicant didn't really present anything as to why they needed to break code here, so I will not be supporting this.
All right. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, just to make sure, actually, Mr. Lyons, if you wouldn't mind, just very briefly, this was the request to come to council. This is an option for people who are denied at Plan Commission. They can come to council for us to basically override.
So ultimately, Plan Commission is just a recommending body. The final decision always rests with council. So Plan Commission did recommend that you deny it, but ultimately that final decision rests with you.
For the people at home, you want to give them the 30-second hit on why Plan Commission and why, staff would be saying no to this?
Yeah, so the zoning district with this is located and is our lowest intensity of our commercial districts. It's really a commercial district that's designed to buffer against surrounding residential areas. So in this case, there's single-family residential directly across the street to the south of it, two-family and mixed-use residential to the east of it. So this zoning district specifically doesn't allow EMC signs, so electric message center signs, because of that proximity to residential and that conflict that they typically pose when they're adjacent to residential with some of the lights and things that are off of them, which is why this district in specific doesn't allow them, compared to when you get to your I-41 corridor suburban misuse district, where you have commercial against commercial and they pose less of an impact. So that Plan Commission, number of members mentioned their comments, their concern was the adjacent residential with the proximity to this sign.
Sure. And if the applicant wanted to still put up a sign, even a similar sign, but just without electronic messaging, it would fit within the abilities, within that area of the city.
Correct. The sign is proposed in terms of size, height, all of that stuff, perfectly code compliant. This is strictly about the EMC. They could do like a manual reader board if they wanted, that we see with a lot of, schools and institution uses and other low-intensity commercial. They do that manual reader board instead of electronic.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any further discussion? All right, please call the roll. Again, an aye vote approves it, and a no vote is in denial in compliance, or along with the recommendation with Plan Commission.
Ford,
No.
Mugrower,
No?
Hanson,
No.
Miller,
No.
Wojciechowski,
No.
Erickson,
No.
Palmieri,
No.
fails, 07.
All right, item number 40, Resolution 22-545, approve designated outdoor refreshment area, DORA, in the Downtown Business Improvement District bid, that's the Business Improvement District area. Do we have anyone registered?
We do not.
I do see that we did receive some recommendations in our packets from Breakwater, just to note there, based on some data that was gathered. So we'll bring it back to council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Let's see here. Councilmember Ford, and then I'm thinking we're probably going to want a staff person after that. Okay.
I want to offer an amendment to change the hours in the proposed resolution from 5 to 10, aside from Saturday, so that Saturday would be the only day with the extended hours from 1 to 10.
I'll second.
All right, just to be clear, the amendment is to change the hours from 5 until 10 on Saturday only?
No, it would be 5 to 10 every day except Saturday. Saturday
Okay.
would be 1 to 10. So the extended hours would only be applied. Well, I guess they're extending it from 9 to 10 for all days, but the earlier start time would only be extended on Saturday.
So Wednesday to Friday would be the 1 to,
No,
5
I'm
PM
sorry,
to 10
5 to
PM.
5 to 10, yep. Saturday
and
would be
then
1 to
Saturday
10.
would be 1 to 10.
Correct.
So just to be clear, you're okay with the 1 PM start time on Saturday?
Correct. That's
Okay.
what I'm amending.
All right. Do you have a second on the motion to amend?
I will second.
Oh, okay. All right, discussion on that amendment. Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, so I came up with that after talking to folks from the bid, talking folks at Breakwater, just reacting to the fact that I think this was a pretty successful, easy, I don't know, rollout of DORA. So I'm not all that concerned with the whole concept of it. But I was given a compelling reason that Saturday during the afternoon hours, there's wedding season and events and stuff, that there's rationale there. I did not get a good rationale for why on Wednesday at 1:30 PM, people want to be drinking beer outside. So I think that this is a decent compromise.
Okay. Councilmember Miller, discussion on the motion to amend.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to be clear, this gives an event the option to come to us and request if there's a jazz fest or something that's running, on an odd day, or an art show where they can come and request that these hours be altered on an individual basis.
I suppose because this is a permit, it would have to come back to council for an amendment to this resolution.
I guess let me say this a better way. I don't want to miss out on an event because they can't come to us and ask for something. Does that make better sense?
So right now, we're on the motion to amend
Right.
the hours. So
Right.
do I understand you to say that you would like the amendment to include that option?
If that's what we need to do. I guess that might be more of a Lynn question, but.
I would interpret this the resolution in front of you with the, assuming the amendment that's proposed is passed, that to, let's say somebody wanted to do a Thursday event at 1 PM, that would require an amendment to this approval, that would require to come back to council for approval. The way it reads right now, I don't believe I have the authority to provide that discretion based on the way the motion is. And that's not inappropriate. I think that would be appropriate. So if something came up, we could do that.
So if I may
could
ask
bring
the
it back
city
to-
attorney.
The other option is with events, they can get a special class B, and if they're in Opera House Square, they could get a special class B license and have their event under that license as well. So that's just another alternative for somebody planning.
I don't want to use that as an example, and what if it's something big where they want to shut down Main Street or something like that? Something like an art show,
If that was something like, I guess what I would offer up is, if something like that big was happening, then they would likely be seeking a special event permit.
Okay.
And then concurrent with that, like right after the special event permit, then consider an amendment to the resolution that's before you to permit something like that in the event. I think that's their hope, long-term. I don't think there's anything imminent that would be coming up that would cross your desk. That's more a guess on my part, but I think it's based on some pretty good information.
And as I understand it, speaking to that, this is not special. This makes it regular. So then the special would get layered on to this regular allowance, to your point, as I understand it. Councilmember Wojciechowski and then Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I think they perhaps do include some in the analysis about what their intent is by expanding the hours. And it makes sense. I think, the goal is to give a little more flexibility in when people are doing events, not just having to put them on a Saturday afternoon, allowing more flexibility. But I think where my concerns are put at ease is where it says, with that said, staff reserves the right to restrict DORA under certain circumstances, including during family-oriented events such as holiday parades. We'll work with the bid to identify these potential restricted dates and times. So that's reading to me, if there is an event happening and they don't feel comfortable having it during the DORA hours, you could limit that. Is that how I'm reading it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that primarily Chief Smith and I would review, and if we saw something that was inappropriate, we just say, we're going to freeze this date out.
Yeah.
And I would reserve the right to do that administratively, but I think I would be cautious about that, let you know and everything.
Yeah.
To add more hours and allow it broader, that's a thing that comes back to council.
Yeah, and that's why I think I feel I think it's fine the way it is. I think it's easier to limit the hours than expand them if someone wants us to expand them, as opposed to someone saying, I want to have my event at 1 o'clock, can you make sure DORA doesn't start until 3 o'clock? At least that's how I'm seeing it. It seems like this ordinance is giving you the ability to do that in special circumstances.
So again, just a reminder, right now we're on the motion to amend to change to 5 to 10 PM, except for the Saturdays. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I've been ambivalent kind of on this particular topic, I guess, for a little bit, but I'm worried about having, each day of the week's a different, we're setting up some inconsistencies here, and I prefer it to be just consistent. That way it's just easy to know when it's allowed, when it's not. And so I get Councilmember Ford's point completely, can understand the rationale behind the amendment. I guess it doesn't bother me between the 1 o'clock compared to the 5 o'clock personally. Councilmember Miller, I think, has got a point. Maybe I can summarize it a little differently. Going forward within our special event process, maybe is there a way that we can build in a step that would allow for it probably will have to come as an amendment at some point in the future to this, but allow a step in that process to create one for a single-day event. That's just a part of the normal special event process. We have to approve those anyways, but somehow building in a process going into the future for city staff, that if that's an option. I think that's maybe what he's kind of hoping for, is that there's just a process that they can go through to request. And then it still comes before us for up, an up or down, but something to consider at least.
I would think that I think the ordinance allows us to bring a request for a DORA with any and all restrictions we want. And I think and I think what you're suggesting is, could you do it for a single day? And I think the ordinance is probably flexible enough, and we could write a resolution like we have here to just say XYZ organization on this day, or XYZ area on this day type of thing. Lynn wants to double check it, so fortunately we can reserve the right to change our minds on this one, but I think it gives us the flexibility. In the context of this, I think you all understand it very well, and I'm sure you'll make a great decision, because that's what you do. How's that for my review night?
We always do, right? We always do.
That's all I have.
Again, so we are talking about the amendment to the hours, but we're also talking about, just kind of a reminder, so the DORA is a place that a thing happens during certain hours. So it's a geography we're dealing with here. And the item before us is asking to expand the hours, expand the days to 4 out of 7 days, which then no longer is a weekend. It's more than half of the week. And I guess I'm struggling with the hours. I think I will be supporting the amendment to make it more of a kind of after work and some limitations to it, because the geography went beyond the original intent, which was a one street, and it expanded to several streets. And so the geography expanded, and now we're talking about the time expansion. So that's my reason why I will support the amendment to the limitation on the hours. Councilmember Ford, did you have another?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate in the analysis, I mean, there is, the only thing that's listed there as a daytime event is for Saturday daytime events. Everything else talks about Wednesday event series, Waterfest, which is Thursday night. So, I mean, it's not in there in the staff memo. It wasn't relayed to any of us what exactly this is going to be doing 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. on any day aside from Saturday. I also think that the discussion about special events is very different than the discussion about changing the hours, in that this is our base ordinance. If this whole thing was about special events, I sure as heck wish someone from the bid was either here to tell me that, or would have been here to tell me about it at some point in the last year and a half. But they've been talking about this making an everyday thing, and that's fine. I'm happy to support that. But in that case, I got to be respectful of the opinions and the values of the entire community, and not just a tiny subset downtown.
All right, so let's call the roll then on the motion to amend, to limit the hours from 5 to 10 p.m. as was previously stated.
Ford?
Aye.
Mugrower?
No?
Hanson?
Aye.
Miller?
No.
Wojciechowski?
No.
Erickson?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Passes 4-3.
All right, so we will now go back to the resolution as amended and open that back up for discussion. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, I want to reiterate something Councilmember Ford just shared. I'm also a little disappointed that there's nobody from the bid here, or a representative from the group that was interested in this. Would have liked to have heard the impact, I assume positive, but would have liked to have heard about the impact of this and what they felt was some positives from it. So I'm a little disappointed in that. We did support it at the beginning, try to pilot, seemingly little to no issues in terms of, physical issues with police or anything like that. And so I'll support the expansion of this and set it up for '23.
Councilmember Erickson.
Thank you. Just to kind of emphasize the point Deputy Mayor made, I think I would have liked to know if this pilot met the intended goals. I'm happy that, there were no issues reported. I don't think it's any surprise that I haven't been supportive of it, but I think given what I'm still hearing from people in recovery in the community being uncomfortable with this, folks who still have, feel unsafe or unwelcome downtown because of this, and given that we only had 3 months of a pilot, I'm wondering, maybe city manager's thoughts on this. Is this something that we could, if approved tonight, could we revisit, say, December of next year to have that kind of report out that we haven't received yet, since we'll have a full 12 months, well, if it starts in April, 9 months.
At any time, council could request that this come back, so that just make that clear. It was discussed about perhaps doing a second year, because in reality, it was probably more of a 13-week pilot period by the time it finally got rolling. So the council could do that. I would suggest, because in my discussions with the bid, they did want to have the possibility of scheduling winter events, and so I would just modify that slightly, so I'm glad it wasn't a motion. I would modify that to review it in a year, but give them a permit of at least one full calendar year, so, because I think what Ms. Meidel from the bid wants to do is plan events, and if she can plan an event with a group of people saying a door is available, then that changes the dynamic. So if you want to do that, I would say do it for one full calendar year, April 1 to March 31, and then revisit it about this time so that you can do it plenty in advance so they could continue with event planning. And I would also add, because they're not here, and I'm a little surprised as well, should something come up, some great event in, let's say, April, they can always come back to council and ask for more. So that's my response to that question about essentially making another pilot program.
I will offer that amendment then to, correct me if I'm wrong in this, allow the permit for a full calendar year, April 1st, 2023 through March 31st of 2024, and for this to come back to be revisited in December of 2023.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Further discussion on the review period amendment Councilmember Erickson offered. I'll be voting present on this. I don't feel like there's enough information or representation here. There seems to be a lot of confusion. I'm inclined to actually make a motion to lay this over until such time that more information and representation could be had, but I will be voting present on this amendment. Councilmember Wojciechowski.
Completely supportive. My only question, I guess, is would that not conflict, but by the time we would review that, that could potentially be new council members. Would that be correct?
I'm not going to project that, but
Well,
yes.
yeah. You know what I mean. The possibility
Conceivably,
that,
yes,
that
yeah.
someone could be joining in and seeing this report, like their first meeting. So I think in response to that, I would almost suggest maybe doing it the meeting before that election, just so the people who, just so people can review it?
I would be bringing it back at this time next year.
December would be
Oh, okay, I thought it was in April, that you were
Yeah,
planning to do it in
just
April.
give them a year for planning. I did say a year under our belt. Well, you wouldn't really have a full year, but
And it
you'd
start,
have.
because it starts April 1st is the intention, so.
Yeah, you would really be close to 9 months in.
Okay, so, okay, that was
Sorry,
my
I
only concern. I just
misspoke.
wanted to make sure that, you know, the people who are reviewing it get a chance to review it.
And, City Attorney, may I ask, and if you don't have this answer now, I just am curious. I know we've talked about like the geography, the timing, the date, the manner, and special event layering over that. Is there a scenario in which someone could request a special event that was a SORA, a sober outdoor recreation area without alcohol, that layered in the DORA? Would it be just too conflicting in terms of our ordinance? Or could that special event for a limited time and space within the DORA, or would the DORA rule?
There is a provision, it's the top of the second page of the resolution, that the exception doesn't apply in the following dates: the first Saturdays in April and October, and any other days designated by the city manager. So I think under that provision, the city manager could say, you know, we have another event in the downtown area, and they're requesting that it not be DORA for that day. Obviously, you would need enough time, I would think, to get that information out so that people know it and are able to change and get the date out for people to know, not, they can't be carrying out that day. But I think that allows for that.
Okay, all right. Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank everybody. I mean, this has been a long process, and I will be supporting the amendment of Lindsay and Mike. I think that this is just amazing compromise. I think we listened to everybody in the community. I think we all respected everybody's opinions up here, and I think this was a dynamite job and a dynamite outcome. So thank you all, partners.
All right, so we're going to call the roll then on the motion to amend the review period as was stated.
And so just to make sure I have it correct, so the permit would be from April 1st, 2023 to March 31st, 2024, and it would be reviewed by council in December of 2023. Okay. Ford?
Aye.
Mugrower?
Aye.
Hanson?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Wojciechowski?
Aye.
Erickson?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Carried 7.
All right, so we have two amendments. One is on the hours, and one is on the review period. I would like to make a motion to lay this over on the remainder of what's left, or this amended piece, so that the applicants or representatives of the applicants can be here to speak to this. If I may make that motion to lay over, is there anyone interested in a second?
I'll second.
Discussion on the motion to lay over until,
Layover or defer?
lay over until the second,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
second Tuesday, which is the first council meeting in January.
I think it's January 10th.
Yeah.
Yes,
January 10th.
January 10th. Any further discussion on the motion to lay over? Please call the roll.
Ford?
No.
Mugrower?
No.
Hanson?
No.
Miller?
No.
Wojciechowski?
No.
Erickson?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Failed 5-2.
All right, we are back to the resolution as amended. Is there any further discussion on that with council as a whole? Please call the roll.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Palmieri,
No.
carried 6.
All right, we are at council discussion and direction to city manager and future agenda items. The first of which will be a future agenda item for review of the beer garden ordinances and processes.
We'll bring a date forward when, after the first of the year, we'll have something for you. You have the memo, and certainly if you have any questions about that, feel free to contact City Attorney Lawrence or me.
And future workshop on streetlights, what is the nature of the streetlight discussion?
That's the one that was discussed at the prior meeting by Mr. Collins regarding the request for, from WPS for some direction on.
Oh, the polls.
The poles,
Okay.
fiberglass versus wood. That's real short summary of it.
All right, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I don't mean to boil this down to such simplicity, but gave a little bit of information at the last council meeting. It seems pretty easy to understand. I'm just trying to figure out why we're holding a workshop when, I want to be honest, we're probably just going to get a PowerPoint presentation and then be asked to, at a future council meeting, give direction. Can't we just get the PowerPoint via email and ask some direction, ask some questions at a council meeting instead of doing a 45-minute workshop ahead of regarding fiberglass or wood light poles? Just
certainly, that's.
It seems like a pretty simple topic in general, but that's just me, though.
He makes a
I
compelling
agree.
point.
I agree.
Certainly happy to do that if that's your desire.
One question, would this go in front of any other board or commission?
Doesn't really land with any of them,
Public Works Commission.
which is really.
Yeah,
just
well, it's been before the Public Works Board. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
I guess if we
The
could get the
board of one?
information, get whatever information is relevant and then put it on the next agenda for us to ask questions.
Yeah.
Jim's doesn't look like he's back there anymore.
Yeah,
so
it
otherwise-
didn't look like he thought he was escaping. I will get him in the morning. That's a reasonable request. We can get you the information. I mean, Jim knows that we need, to your point, I think Jim would, if Jim was here, he would say, WPS is really looking for an answer by the end of January, so that might make it a little.
That's fine.
Facilitative. So we can just put it on the agenda and get you this information much sooner.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for council for entertaining the notion, too.
I was going to make it 2 hours, but
Build our own PowerPoints on which one we should have.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any council member announcements and statements? Councilmember Wojciechowski.
Thank you. Sustainability Advisory Board met on Monday last week, and we have started the process of developing the committee's goals for next year. So hoping that those will eventually come before council just for input and discussion.
Okay, we're at city manager announcements and statements.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's a variety of memos in your packet regarding professional services agreements that don't meet the threshold for council approval, but do require reporting. Most of these are for, engineering and professional related services related to our 2023 capital improvement plan. And certainly Mr. Robbie can answer any questions, but these are ones that we pretty much do on an annual basis with, as you can see, various engineering firms depending on their relative expertise. There is also a memo in your packet regarding housing study implementation update. Some council members actually had spoken with me about this, so I thought it was appropriate to just give you an update. Really, the first step is the zoning updates that, to talk about accessory dwellings and things like that. So Ms. Nyforth put a little update in there, and certainly happy to answer any questions. I think it's sort of in keeping with what Deputy Mayor Mugrauer said. This is one where this is what we're planning to bring forward very shortly. No workshop necessary, because I think you've already had your workshop on this issue, and now it's starting to get into the implementation phase. The next one is, I gave you a thumbnail sketch of recent ARPA applications. These are ones that I think council is previously familiar with. The groups are making a second request, so I'm just providing this with you for background. I welcome any input that you can provide to me, and we can, may or may not place this on an upcoming agenda for council consideration, but I wanted you to be aware, at least before we get into the extended break we're going to take with our next meeting canceled, is just give you an idea of what's on the forefront as we enter the new year. And then lastly, I have the update of outstanding issues, and happy to answer any questions on these or any of these items.
Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, I was going to state quickly on the ARPA things. I just wanted to remind maybe even applicants that part of our ARPA policy is that we're not duplicating efforts and that we're showing signs of collaboration for these community projects. And just those two that were in that packet today, I thought it was concerning that both of those applications dealt with the issue of homelessness and neither listed each other as partners. That's a huge red flag for me, personally.
Councilmember Wojciechowski.
Sorry if this is out of order. I meant to say it earlier during the statements, unrelated to, but I just wanted to mention that last week there was the Public Arts event forum, and I know Mark and people from the city, Councilman Hanson was there, Mayor was there. I wasn't able to say the entire event, but yeah, it was a really awesome event. And I hope there were some good ideas maybe that could be eventually presented to council about the different ideas that community members thought of. So kudos to that committee.
Yes, I believe that was organized by a fairly recent addition to the Public Arts and Beautification.
Yeah, thank you very much for bringing that up. I'm so sorry I forgot that one. I figured it was a city event thing because so many of us were there, actually.
Yeah. So, way to go. New members coming on boards and commissions.
But also, there are still spots on different boards and commissions that need to be filled, so please look out for that. And I'm also going to take it back to that as well. After 10 years, Dan Becker, the chairperson of Traffic and Parking Advisory Board, is retiring his spot. I'd just like to say thank you very much, Dan, for all of your work you've done for the city, and congrats on moving forward. And there are 2 spots now open on that.
And as well as transit, stormwater, and several others. So appreciate folks paying attention to those. It looks like we've got some more new applications coming in with the new year. I know you're all anxiously awaiting after your holiday gift exchange to get that application right away. We'd love the gift of your time. So
That's
thank you.
all I have, Madam Mayor.
All right, and we have a motion, Deputy Mayor has a motion for closed session.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that following the adjournment of this meeting, the council may convene into closed session to discuss pursuant to section 19.85, parens 1C of the Wisconsin State Statutes, to discuss the performance evaluation and compensation regarding the city manager, an employee over which the common council has jurisdiction and exercises responsibility.
Second.
All right, please call the roll.
Ford.
Aye.
Mugrower.
Aye.
Hanson.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Wojciechowski.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
And we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.